What kind of are you drinking coffee right now, or are you like a tea guy?
I'm coffee, but I'm slowly transitioning into tea because, dude, especially in college, I would drink like 3 pots a day, and I drink it
What?
like 9 p.m. I'm right before bed. I'm drinking coffee, and uh, I never thought it affected me. And since I basically just drink it in the mornings now, I do sleep a lot better. So I like this switch. And I used to be like 75% creamer. Now I'm no creamer, so I'm proud of that.
You definitely don't start at 3 pots of coffee. So this has probably been something you've been doing since high school, right?
Yeah, I think it started off with like these crappy cappuccino mixes and tea and slowly just turned into the hardcore coffee addiction.
How I don't know how you're drinking it. Are you somebody that you really just like the taste?
I love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Love the taste. I think because I really had a hard time and like I seriously this is one of the more proud things I am of in my life is like quitting coffee creamer. And I got an espresso machine and I started just like doing shots of that and like I told myself I liked it, but it sucks. But it did light you up. And then it slowly is like, I'm just gonna drink, black coffee now. So it did help me get there.
I don't think I started coffee until maybe like 2 or 3 years ago.
No kidding.
And yeah, it like I didn't drink it in college, but it was something just like you wake up early and you're coaching, and there are long
Yeah.
days. And then I was coaching youth after the high school, so it was like I wouldn't get home until 8:30, sometimes later, 9 o'clock. And I'm doing that like three times a week, and it's like I need a little coffee in the morning sometime to
Oh
get
my
up and
God.
going.
You
Um,
seem like a huge coffee guy. I would suspect you were like you buy your own beans and grind them up and all kinds of crazy stuff.
I mean, I've bought beans before, but it was by accident. I thought it was I thought they were already the grounds, and I
I've done
remember
that
getting
too.
them.
Yeah.
But we have a coffee grinder. It was just one of those things where I came home and, dude, my wife was giving me such a hard time. She's like, "You're so silly. You need to make sure you read. You need to get my glasses checked." Like,
I've done that same thing.
dude, how blessed is it to be like married and like have like a wife that's
It's
like there to
awesome.
support you? And
Yeah,
I
because
mean, there's so many little things that like
yeah.
they don't tell you about when you get married
No.
that like you get, and I'm like, dude, this is awesome.
Yeah, you think you're all grown up and then you kind of start to become a kid a little bit and they take good care of you. It's great. My
Yeah,
mom's
I
very
get.
happy.
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys still all live in Clarion together, right?
Yeah, so her parents live in Pittsburgh, but that's like an hour and a half from here and I think they're working on some stuff to maybe come a little bit closer, which would be great. And then we'll just have a kind of a huge village out here and maybe one day have Zacherl Lane and a bunch of
Let's
houses. It'd be
go.
great.
Just rename the town after you at that point.
Yeah, that's a long-term plan. We'll see. I gotta get into politics or something.
Would you seriously get into politics if you could?
No, hell no.
What if like they were like, hey, the town came together and like, Brock, we seriously though, we want you to run for mayor.
I'd say you better find somebody. I got a twin brother. Maybe they can get him in.
This was I think maybe like last spring. But one of our guys who wrestle at Frontier, he wrestled in what was the Dapper Dan, and it's called something
Uh,
else now.
yeah, yeah.
But I remember hearing on the stream that you were brought up. They were talking about how you were recruiting somebody and you took him to the river and like showed off like the town and stuff.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the
Yeah. So
people
I
it
heard
was.
that I heard that on the stream, and I was like, I know him. Let's go, Brock. Using
Yeah.
that river to your
Yeah.
advantage.
Always. Yeah, it's right over there. Looks good right now. We cut down the trees in front of my house too since we last talked, and it's a nice view.
So out your front door, there's just river,
Yeah.
like you can
Yeah.
see it. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
So I
How
live on
close
the
is it?
river, but the wrong side of the road. I could easily throw, and I'm not a quarterback. I could easily throw a football into the river from my house. It's great. It's a great spot. And then there's a trail right out my back door that goes like you can walk it. It's North Country Trail. It's famous to like hikers, and you can go from like I think it goes from Maine to like Minnesota. It's just a foot trail. It's right
That's
there. So I
awesome.
walk that I actually the older I get, the more I like the trail over the river.
Really?
Yeah, I like the trail a lot. And I used to always
I
go, my wife would be like, let's go for a walk. And whenever I was still like training. And I just worked out all day and I got to do this dang walk. And now it's like, I'm like begging her, like, hey, let's go for a walk. It's just, I love it.
Well, the river, I feel like it's always moving, and you can kind of go sit and relax, or you can go do some fishing or something.
Yep.
And it's kind of like a wind down.
Yeah.
But dude, I feel like you're a pretty high energy guy, at least from the way that we've
Oh, yeah.
interacted in the past. So I feel like yeah, getting a chance, getting moving, maybe you're
Yeah.
not as I'm sure you still wrestle with the guys a little bit though, so you're
Oh, yeah.
probably not working out as much. A little trail time is probably good.
Yeah. Wrestling's still like my favorite thing to do, but I just had knee surgery on Tuesday. Um, Nothing major. I just had my meniscus taken out. But then in the report, they said my ACL's been torn for they don't know how long. So,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
it doesn't bother me at all. So I'm just gonna kind of let it ride. But I got a dog that's got my attitude. So we go up on that trail and he just goes berserk. I don't put him on a leash or anything. So he just goes hog wild.
Is there an incline on the trail or is it pretty flat?
Yeah, there's like the way that I go, there's like a little stream that dumps out into the river and it's not waterfalls, but it's beautiful, and I go down, I make it so I walk the steep part twice. So there's like a real steep incline and we'll walk down it and then we'll go up the other side and then I'll turn around and come back up the steep hill. I like that spot.
Dude, walking down on the steep part doesn't bother your knee a little bit or what?
No, that's
No?
I've been like super lucky, like my whole career, and I didn't realize the advantage I had. Like I never would get sore, like even at tournaments and stuff. I like, obviously I'm getting a little older now, but never had like serious injury things. I had to get my elbow done to get that medical year, but even that was just like a freak thing. And honestly, the recovery was so easy that, I'm just got unicorn blood or something. Injuries, nothing really bothers me.
That's wild. It's wild too about the ACL. I feel like that's kind of been a thing. I don't know, maybe in the last like 5 or 6 years. I mean, I remember hearing about I always forget his name. This guy from Minnesota, I think that won it. That had like yeah, his ACL got all jacked up.
Yeah.
Maybe back like in the early 2000s or late 90s. But then obviously Spencer Lee won it with
Yeah.
no ACLs. But it was it bothering you or just you just been
It
cruising
was
through it?
would always tell my wife and I there's a young freshman on our team that I wrestle around with a lot, and I was even telling him, I'm like, I'm telling you, I think something's wrong with my ACL. Like my knee just felt weird and unstable, no pain or anything. And then when I got the report, I'm like, oh my God, I knew it. You know,
How often do you wrestle with the guys?
Usually like every day that I can. I hadn't been because my meniscus started locking up and it had done it for like 6 years, but normally I just straighten my leg and it was, never even hurt for a second. And then the one day I got locked for like a long time and I had a buddy show me how he unlocked it. And luckily I got unlocked because it was a pain in the butt trying to watch kids with it locked. And so I just kind of was lazy about getting it taken out and wanted to wait till the season was over so I could keep wrestling. But then it started locking up like every time that I was like moving. And so then I just had it cut out. But up until that point, I was wrestling with the guys like every single day. And, you know, I just I think it's good for them. The one thing that obviously I don't think it held me back, but the one thing I really wish I would have had more of whenever I was in school was like to me, the All-Americans, the national champs, they don't do anything spectacular. Like technically they're pretty, obviously not easy, but they're like most people are on par with them technically. But what
Yeah.
they do bring that is really rare is like that pressure and that heat that just never, they don't quit coming. And like I describe it to our guys like they keep your head underwater for 7 minutes. And being that kind of pressure for them where that like this guy's like crazy doesn't quit coming is like what I try to do. And it's just when you're a kid and competing, you're just so focused on winning that, you're backing off and bringing the heat on and off a lot more. Where when you're a coach, you just don't care what's going on. It's like one track mind, bring the pressure, bring the pressure, bring the pressure. That's why I like to wrestle with them because I can do something they can't because my mind, I'm not like focused on winning like they are.
Yeah, I mean, definitely when we go live, it's like sometimes I kind of have to like hold back, you know, like I can't go guns blazing all the
Uh-huh.
time.
Right.
Especially like trying to get different looks or different feels.
Hmm.
It's weird this last state tournament, you know, I was really trying to like I don't know why it took me so long, but I'm looking at like the difference between like our guys that qualified and like some of the higher end guys, and obviously there's guys like you know, like Vince Posada or Zapata that are like nationally ranked, you know,
Yeah.
top five in the country for their weight, and it's like other than those guys, like the low end placers, there's really not that much of a difference. It's just who's willing to go and
Yeah.
take it. And I think it goes
Right.
back to that intensity part, that
Exactly.
pressure part. You know, it's like
Yeah.
if you could just like bring
Hmm.
that heat, you know, but it doesn't just come out in competition. It's got to be in your training as well.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, that's the way I wrestled in college. It was I could hide a lot of my imperfections a lot more because I was really good at just I was slippy. You could not get a hold of me. And then like eventually you're going to walk into a double leg, and even my single leg was just a double where you split your legs. Like I when I was going through it, I told myself I had like this huge arsenal, but I did like nothing. And so I didn't realize the big flaws in my game. And those people like the Gilman-esque people. When I used to go to NLWC, he would always ask me for matches, and I freaking hated wrestling him, but I just would learn so much. And eventually I ended up changing to the point where it's like this style is a lot more adaptable. And my big thing was if when I was winning, I was gonna beat you up. But if I need to go get a score, it was hard because they just didn't have to come into me, and my offense was a lot worse. So, um, I think changing things and just learning, you know, to adapt and grow is huge.
You're talking about like when you're slippery, like clearing ties,
Yeah.
but it's just like the initiating contact part.
Yeah.
Um,
I'd
yeah,
put my hand on your head and like this is I mean, and when I'm not exaggerating when I say this is all I did. I'd kind of like bounce around and like I would fake, and I was pretty quick, so you would kind of have to react. But then I just touch your head, and when you grab my hand, that's all I was looking for. I call it a bobber, like you're fishing. And once they grab my
yeah.
hand, I would either like shoot a double, or I would bring it down and fake, and that was it. That's, I didn't have nothing on top. I was going to get out every time with a stand up. And that was, I can't believe how far it got me.
I was just talking with one of my friends the other day. We were talking about how, you know, coaching and like building a system and like things like that, and you know why certain programs have maybe kind of fallen off our state a little bit is because they've kind of built this system. But the hard thing is, it's hard to evolve out of it.
Yeah.
But one thing I thought was interesting, and I've always kind of said this, is I think your wrestling style is very much reflective of who you
Yeah.
are. So it's funny that
100%.
you're talking about making contact with that hand
Yeah.
like you're fishing,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's
Right.
like one of your favorite things to do.
Yeah.
It's
It's,
fish.
it's, it's funny you say that because I use that's, I look back on kind of how everything's it went. I feel like we can get a lot better at recruiting. And before at Clarion, it was just like throw a huge net, like recruit an insane amount of kids, and like 200, 300 kids a class. Like it didn't even make sense. And there was just so many kids that it could be difficult to kind of do a vetting process and watch film. And for me, uh, like the credentials, the more that I'm coaching, the credentials are not they're not a very good indicator of success in college. Like the character and like how the kid deals with adversity and like how hard he works, those things, are much better indicator of how good they're going to do in college. And so I'm trying to watch way more wrestling of these kids because, like you said, I feel like just the way they wrestle, you can learn, like get a very accurate picture of who that kid is and what they're like, just by the way they're wrestling and reacting to things. And it, you can see it in a lot of other sports, but wrestling, everything is just it's mano a mano. Like you're going to see a real picture, and that's what we're trying to get a little more back to that. And um, I think those are the big things that show you what a kid's really about.
When you say like you're watching film and excuse me, I might have to do it, but it's building up. It
Yeah,
might take me
I,
a second.
I used to never get when I grew up on a dairy farm, and I would never get allergies. And then when I moved to Clarion full time, I get them every change of the season.
Yeah, it's not fun. And I
Yeah,
got like I got a deviated septum, and I don't think it's necessarily from wrestling. I might have just been born with it or
yeah.
what. But dude, that stuff just locks up there. Um, some people are like, dude, that's really gross. I don't know why you're talking about that, but that's okay.
Wrestler, that's normal.
Yeah. Well, so when you're talking about like you're looking for specific things, are you talking about like are guys hustling back to the center?
Yeah,
Are they wrestling through positions? Are they when they get taken down, are they trying to get fight hands and get their weight back right away, or are they kind of laying there? Like, are you
yeah.
talking about those kinds of things?
All of those things. I
Getting
got that
bonus
one.
points.
Yeah, bonus like see, yeah, and that's a big one because I felt like one of the big flaws I had um was I would hold on to leads in big matches. And we had a kid, well, just two examples. Seth Coleno, who was conference champ for us, a few years ago, and then just the recent true freshman we had that just was in the conference finals, Travis Clausen. They just wrestle like maniacs. And like if they're up by one, down by one, up by 10, down by 10, they're wrestling like it's like they're losing. And that's a really special thing. So when I see a kid that does that, I really don't care what their record is or um, what their credentials are. I think that you're going to be able to go far with that kid. And that's what the Travis Clausen, Seth Coleno was pretty good in high school, but Travis Clausen he qualified for states his sophomore year in Pennsylvania, and he qualified for states his senior year. So he's only a two-time state qualifier, and he placed one time. He took seventh last year at PA States at 114 pounds. And I just think it's unbelievable how far he came in one year where he's now, took second in the conference. And, he just the progress he's made in just a month is unbelievable. The Ryder kid was up by 14 on him 3 weeks, or I guess it would have been about a month ago now, and then pinned him. So just, totally dominated him. And then Travis had him first round of the conference tournament. Travis beats him by 14. And
What?
yeah,
That's
it's
wild.
also unbelievable. Like when you have that work ethic and you don't like you're almost I don't want to say crazy. Crazy is the right word, where you're just constantly applying that pressure. You're just going to get better at a rate that people can't fathom because you're getting in so many more wrestling positions than the guy that wrestled like I did. I would just wrestle tight. It was going to be about one or two positions where when you wrestle Travis Clausen or Seth Coleno, it's going to be about 100, and probably a lot of positions that you guys have never even seen before. So I think that's what does well.
That's pretty rare to have as a freshman, like a true
Yeah.
freshman, just the ability to just keep scrapping no matter what. And I think maybe it has to do like I don't know, they don't know or they don't care
Yeah.
about maybe the quality of their opponent. They just love wrestling.
Yeah, I think it's a big thing because like when you go from high school to college, you kind of restart in a lot of ways where you don't know the scene. Like in high school, you kind of know everybody. And it's just, whether you want to not look at, track wrestling or flow wrestling, do your research or not, you probably know the guy. Or in college, you get that restart again and you can kind of, yeah, a good opportunity to build that habit of like quit wrestling the man and just wrestle. And I think, it's hard to say for sure, but I think it seems like we've got some young guys on our team that are doing that pretty well.
Well, it's like it's a culture.
Yeah.
It's like you got to build that culture up. And I think it's like every now and then it's like or at least like right now we have maybe a group of older kids that maybe kind of fall in that trap a little bit too much, where they're looking at the ranking or they're looking at their seed and they're trying to like predict their way in the bracket.
Hmm.
But this last year, we had a few freshmen that really just do not care about that. Like, and
Yeah.
they want to be good and they want to win, right now, and they're not willing to wait. And
Yeah.
that's like a shot in the arm, and it's good for everybody else,
Everybody. Yeah.
because they don't quite have that experience, and maybe they're not, maybe on paper, I'm gonna do air quotes, as good yet,
Yeah.
maybe as some of those older guys, but they don't care,
Yeah.
and
Right.
that's a big deal.
Yeah. This is the Clausen example. Obviously I'm real proud of him, but it's just so many hidden messages in his year where like he was third string when he got here. He was not beating anybody, and he came a long way with that mindset. And I think that's something I want to do when I reflect on like what I can do better this year. Like I'm really hard on myself, especially like we had a couple seniors that just they they're super talented. They did everything that you tell them to do. They run through a brick wall for you, and they just they came up short, and it really hurts, but in a way that's real productive for me because that hurt is like kind of what drives you to keep like I know there's an answer there, and I refuse to accept that there wasn't. And I just thinking about it, I think the one thing that I could do a lot better is just kind of doing like I'll tell these guys these things that we're talking about, like, don't wrestle them in, just wrestle hard, keep coming. But not enough. You can really kind of, in a sense, brainwash them, by getting these reps and having them uh, do these things outside of their lives too. Like they wrestled this way for 10 plus years. A lot of these kids, maybe try to get them to open up in other aspects of their life, like trying new foods or talking to that girl that they've are afraid to talk to, and it'll help them translate a little easier to the wrestling. And like you said earlier, how you wrestle is a good reflection of who you are. And, maybe trying to do that, get those reps outside the room too, will help you do it, in your wrestling as well. So that's one thing I want to just get better at is like really even more like daily kind of build that mentality of like you are focused on beating the guy you were yesterday and getting the most out of yourself, and all the other stuff really shouldn't be a priority.
Well, I think it's like trying to get yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone
Yeah.
is kind of what you're saying. I know this is going to be maybe kind of weird, but one of my buddies had this idea of guys were, maybe a little afraid to be uncomfortable or
Yeah.
fearful a little bit in their wrestling. And I think he had this project or this assignment where they had to identify what they're most afraid of and then go and confront that.
Yeah.
And one was like waking up early. Another one, and this was he's an assistant on our coaching staff now. He wrestled at Cal Poly as a state champ for us, Trent Tracy. But his was he was afraid of birds. So you had to have proof that like you were overcoming your fear. And he had somebody. I mean, I don't condone this in any way, but he had somebody with a camera, and he went and tried to like hold a bird, like a live bird, outside, and
Good
ended
for
up doing
him.
it. Yeah, but it's like he's afraid of birds.
Yeah.
Had to go grab one. He didn't hurt or anything, and then let it go. But
Yeah.
it's just, I think when I heard that, I'm like, dude, that's kind of good coaching.
I
Like
love it.
you're
Yeah,
trying to
I
get
love
them
it.
out of their comfort zone. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that idea of doing something outside of the sport, it was not my idea. That was something I got from a podcast. This guy who was chess world champ turned Tai Chi world champ, and he said when he works with athletes, like that's what he'll try to get them to change outside, and it'll translate more. It's just too hard to do it in a sport they've done for so long. So that's funny that you one of your guys has naturally ended up there. You should give him a raise. He's smart.
Yeah, well, he's the head coach right now, so
Yeah.
I don't think he could go any higher.
Yeah, you're right.
We can call him. Yeah, I don't know.
He-
I give him a hard time because he's often very right. It's like sometimes his approach is a little bit dry, but normally what he says or he thinks is right. It's just sometimes he comes off as people don't like hearing the truth sometimes.
Oh, right. You're right.
Especially when you look at younger kids that are
Yeah.
17, 18. You try to give them some answers, and sometimes they don't really like the way that
Oh,
what they
I
hear.
know
So
it.
it's
Yeah. I was the same way too. There's the coach on staff with us at Clarion, Deloy. He's coached me since I was 10. And so many times in my career I'd be like, no, 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 that's not, that you'd want to do this here. And then after a couple weeks, I'm like, yeah, you know what? You're probably right. I think your thing's a little bit better. And still this day, I kind of have those conversations with him where, I'm like, no, I think this. And then I go out and start playing with him like, ah, shoot, that, he's right. And then I always have to, come back and be like, no, I'm sorry. You're right.
That's a hard thing to do too, is admit when you're wrong. I know I struggle sometimes with that too.
It's
Because it's
hard.
just like that stubbornness. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you don't know what you're talking about.
Uh-huh.
I know I'm right. And then you go try it or you go do something, and you're like, all right, you know,
Screw you.
that's okay. Dude, I want to talk about Weight Cut Wingman a little bit and just check in on how that's going. I think the last time we talked on the last podcast, you were still kind of in the testing phase. I definitely turned on a couple of our guys to it, and they were using it a little bit. Not as much this year, but 2 years ago. How's that going? Are you still kind of working on that? Why I know you're working on other stuff.
Yeah, I'm just kind of I'm just poking around and having fun with whatever's interesting. I totally rebuilt Weight Cut Wingman, and I think it's in a much better place. And it was cool for me to go back and redo that project because when I was kind of teaching myself to code and stuff, it took me like an entire year to build that. And I think I rebuilt it like in a week or maybe 2 weeks. And it is like just going through it was nice to see how much better at programming I got because I hadn't really realized it. And just looking at the way I did things and now I'm doing them now, it's like it was really exciting to kind of see. And I like where it's at. I'm gonna, um, once I kind of get through this fantasy wrestling, these next couple weeks, fix because most of the time with the code, it's like mostly crap. And then, I test it and it like works good, and then other people test it and are like, this thing's junk, and then I got to go and fix a bunch of stuff. So I'll probably spend a couple weeks fixing that, and then I have a list of things I want to fix with Weight Cut Wingman and get it ready for like I think for Fargo and things like that. The summer will be kind of a good goal where I add like, um, now it's pretty good at building you what you need for whatever your goals are, whether you're gaining or losing or maintaining weight, but taking pictures so that way you can kind of like all right, I woke up today, what I want. Let's take a picture of my fridge and my pantry and be like, hey, whip me up something. No, I don't like that. All right, this meal looks good and I'll roll with that. So that just that way, it's like for me, I think it would been really good to just be totally flexible. Um, and rather than having like, all right, here's my month, here's my meals, wake up in the morning, get to pick what sounds really, good to me, but still is going to fit within my calorie range and my protein range and, my carbs and all that. I think it's going to be something that's really helpful for kids. And, the picture portion is just going to be nice to where, you know, um, I'm on the road. Here's my options. I'm in my house or I'm at my friend's house or I'm at school. I think it's going to be really helpful for wrestlers in the long term with their weight stuff.
You're saying taking a picture and then is there like a AI or some
Yeah.
kind of code that recognizes what's in there?
Yeah, so I'll just take a picture and the AI will say, all right, here's what I think's in the picture. Here's, some meal options that would fit in your range. And I think it'll be a pretty cool tool to use.
Yeah, like I kind of want to use that.
Yeah, I think
That's
it's going to be very helpful.
so is it still through the I know last time I think you were just using Apple phones.
Yeah.
Is that expanded at all? You got the Android
Well,
hookup
so
or
it has
because I
not
know it's the
expanded yet.
process, right?
Yeah, it has not
Yeah.
expanded yet, but I think that I could release it on Android like within a week if I wanted to. 'Cause I haven't done too much research into it, because nothing's really generating that much money yet. Though this is the first year that I paid. I'm not negative money, so I'm proud of that. So my wife didn't think it would ever happen, but this is the year. But I there's this thing called Skip where essentially I think I can just show it my code and it spits out an Android version. So I'm not too worried about it. And now with just like where AI is at, and you have to kind of understand like very novice level. Like I'm by no means like an engineer by any sense of the word, but like I understand programming enough that like I think I could whip it together pretty fast whenever it gets there.
Well, you don't have to do it for my account, but I have an Android, so I
I
can't
know, I
I
noticed that.
can't I can't use it. That's okay.
I will. I will. Fantasy wrestling and weight cut wingman are the two that I'm working on a bunch of little projects, but those are the two that I think um, sound really appealing to me to get on Android quick.
Yeah, because they're relatable, and
Yeah,
I think I mean definitely the Wake Up Wingman app. I think that's something that a lot of wrestlers can use.
yeah,
I mean we use a nutritionist pretty regularly. I actually think he lives in PA. So sometimes like our conversations on the phone, it's like I have to try to like with us like trying to
yeah,
figure out like what's a good time to talk to him. But our kids kids want to make sure they're getting their weight down or
yeah.
up or maintained or whatever. Um, and yeah, I think
That's good.
like the making it like a regular part, I think of their habit without having to pay. I'm not gonna say how much his fee is, but sometimes it's a big chunk of change.
Yeah, right.
With the app right now, is there like a free version and then like a cost version?
There's no free version, but there probably will be because this year's been because it costs money to use the AI. And
Yeah.
so I was like intentionally very afraid of the costs. Um, but after running it for a year, like it is way cheaper than I would have ever thought. So, I'm still a little nervous about a free version because someone can just, in theory, just sit there and be like, blah, 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 and then,
No.
run up the cost because I can't put a cap on it. Um, so that's part of why I had to redo fantasy wrestling too, is because uh, usually they would let you put a cap on the database stuff, and then Google took it away. So I was like, I can't. You're on the hook for $0, but it could be 70 grand, and I'm like, I'm not like in a position for that risk. So, switching the AI to something where I can cap, which I have a solution for that. Um, and then the back end, same thing. So I will have a free version though. Right now, if you try to do it, there wouldn't be an option. I think for Fargo um, stuff, I want to try to release it like a month pre-Fargo. So like maybe like end of May or early June, try to get a free version out for people too, to just, it's kind of hard to fork over money for something you don't really, haven't really tested yet. But I think once someone takes a picture of their fridge and it spits out a meal that makes sense, I think, I would have paid for that for sure. Because I think right now it's only like $20 a year, so it's not even that much for like you know,
Oh, dang.
yeah, yeah, right.
So, you say there's like a cap on it. Is it something where it's like you could take what, like 3 pictures per day or 1 picture per day or something like that?
So I don't want to do that to the users because I want them to like have their get what they want out of it, especially if they're
Yeah.
paying for it. Um, what I found you can do is if I can basically the AI, I can go into the dashboard and set a limit to it. Like so say I don't want to spend more than $20 a month. Um, I can set it to that. But what the downside is like once I hit $20, the app will essentially shut off. So all the users are going to not have access to it. So just trying to figure out how exactly I want to navigate that whole thing. Um, but obviously, I think at this point I can go a little higher than $20. So we'll see. I'm still kind of thinking through it, but it should be a very easy thing. Like I don't even think I need to rewrite any code from the research that I've done, which
It's
is
just yeah. Well, I think that's probably like the most time consuming thing I would think maybe is like getting a little bit of feedback from testing
yeah,
it and then like, all right, I gotta go rewrite the code.
yeah, right.
And then still making sure that your changes didn't mess with everything else. Like
Yeah.
that's all still compatible.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I've been real focused on fantasy wrestling, so I haven't went back, but just through like basically when I'm like walking around at a tournament or in between matches or when I'm out shopping or something with the wife, just quick research. It seems very easy to do. And I'm excited about that because like, those are the things I get nervous about. And, you know, I, wrestling people don't like to fork over money that much. So I want to try to keep
Yeah.
everything cheap, but it's like, just real scared to get a freaking huge bill. But luckily, I think I got everything solved. I just got to patch it all together.
Well, I know like with our parents and stuff, I think excuse me, when you see like people are more willing to fork over money is because like what I said with the weight thing, like we had a kid that ended up being it was I don't want to say necessarily what ended up happening. It's just, it was a lot I think for him to handle.
Yeah, it
Because
is.
he was making weight earlier in the season and then he hit a growth spurt. Like he just started getting a little bit taller. He started getting leaned out. He got to the spot where he kind of, was kind of stuck at this weight. And the guys around him were all like his buddies, and he couldn't go lower. Obviously, he didn't want to go higher. So it was just a tough situation. But we started the nutrition, I think, a little bit too late, but just the mental discipline over and over and over again.
Yeah,
When we got put in that situation, that's kind of we were recommending, like, all right, like let's get a nutritionist. We talked to his parents about it, and they started using it. And I think it ended up helping a lot.
yeah.
And they're paying way more than $20. So
That's what I think. I feel like it's fair. But dude, you like it is so hard. And I went through the same thing my freshman year of high school, and it was like um when I look back, I would call it brutally a toughness thing. Like I just wasn't ready for that. I wasn't mature enough to like, skip this meal or like skip this dessert or whatever. And it just like you said, you can kind of do it for a month or so, but it really catches up with you when you start to do it for multiple months. And that's what I noticed when I went up to 49 in college. Like I still really wasn't, I'm embarrassed about it because I was so disciplined in every aspect of my life. Like I really am confident I outworked everybody and lived way better than probably anybody else in college. But like it was so hard for me. And I would eat clean, but I would just eat too much. And when I went up to 49, it was like, you know, uh, I was super small. I was the smallest 149 pounder. I still to this day, I'm only like, I could make it tomorrow if I had to. And, but what I saw was like early in the year, I would take some losses that I'm like, man, I can't believe I'm losing to this kid, but then as the season progresses, like, and you get to like January, February, um, I started beating kids that were majoring kids that I lost to. And it's like, yeah, the kids that I was losing to were enormous. And it's like, nothing's free. You can either choose, it's a superpower for some people that are really disciplined, but it's
Yeah.
going to be uh, detrimental to some kids where it's not. And, um, just playing the game that works for you is really what you have to do. Cause it's just one of those things, like, it's just not the same for every kid.
Yeah, and I think different people have different maturity levels and discipline levels where it's a little bit easier to do, or not necessarily easier, but they're just better at being
Yeah.
disciplined.
Yeah.
I think with our kids, and this is frustrating. It's every year. It's like they're letting their weight balloon up, and they're coming in and start
Yeah.
the week 8 or 9 over, and it's like again, it's like a high school thing. I don't know. It's like, dude, we're getting on their butts. We're trying to talk to their parents, like, hey, he's way too heavy, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry. We're trying to whatever, whatever, and it's like, just stop overeating, and
Yeah.
it's always it seems like right after the weigh-in, it's
Yeah.
like Saturday night, you got home from the tournament. I make a point to not stop it. Like we gas up before the
Yeah.
finals. So that way we don't have to
That's smart.
stop on
That's
the
real
way
smart.
back.
Yeah.
But that way we can avoid
Yeah.
some temptation. Um, but it's like what you said, where it might be okay to do for a month or maybe even a couple months, but by the time you get to the end of the season, I mean, for me, it's like I feel like your joints. It's a little bit hard on
Yeah.
your joints. It's hard on your mind.
Every, yeah.
And the California State tournament's a 3-day weigh-in. If you end up
Yeah.
making to the round of 12, so it's like, dude, you don't want to be having to cut 8 or 9 pounds every
Yeah.
single week, to the point where yeah, it's hard on your body and hard on your mind.
Right. And it's so mental. Like whenever I was going through it, when I was at 41, I just kept telling myself like everyone's going to believe what they want to believe. And everyone was trying to help me and I would just go from 41 to like in the 70s, like that. And it's like, no, you guys just don't understand. I just am cutting more weight than anybody else in the country. And then I said I'm going 149. And then to this day I weigh like 53, and this summer I was in a sauna for a little bit, getting some weight off. And then I just was like, check my weight, and I was underweight. I weighed 148.7. And it's like, wow, I wish I could go back in time and tell myself like, no, you're just doing it wrong, dude. And it's so hard to, because you couldn't have got through to me. Whenever I was going through it, I just had my mind made up that it was, and it's a shame because that was not reality. And I think it really would have helped me a lot, especially that last year to go 141 one more time.
So you said you let your weight go up to 170, like in the off season.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
almost immediately it was.
really,
Yo, and I
dude?
would look like crap.
Well, I mean, I feel like when you're at 170, when your body's like 30 pounds higher than what you're competing at, I feel like you move differently. You react differently, like when somebody maybe attacks your leg or something like that, and you don't have as much maybe strength on your body,
Mhm.
because I'm sure you're lifting and stuff during that all that time as well.
Yep.
Um, it's like almost you wrestle different. So it's like
Yeah.
when you get your weight down, now you have to kind of not relearn how to wrestle, but like get
Right.
used to your body being at that weight, and you just
Yeah.
miss the whole off season being relatively close to where you're at.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You're spot on there. And yeah, it's that's probably one of my biggest regrets with everything. It was one caring a little too much about winning and like instead of just really focusing on my potential. And then
Yeah.
two, it's just managing my weight like a bum.
That's like I think like a mental shift that we try to use this year is like going from being hey, we're about winning, and not necessarily going about like that, like saying it like that, but we're really focusing, are you getting better or are you
Yeah.
not getting better? And that's how we're
Right.
measuring the success of the tournament. And I think with the challenge was being very consistent about that the whole year, but we were able to do that. And I think our kids got a lot better, I think, because of it. And I
Mhm.
think at the same time, too, it became a little bit, I don't want to say easier to take a loss because losing still sucks no matter what,
Yeah. Yeah.
but easier to bounce back from a loss, knowing
Right.
like, all right, I need to work on this, and it being
Yeah.
a little more open to that. So I think
Yeah.
that whole process driven thing, you look at like I think last time we talked about Bill Belichick, Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, they're always talking
Yeah.
about being process driven,
Right.
doing your job, focus on things that you can control.
Yeah.
And I think that's a tough thing for young people to understand. But man,
For
if they
sure.
get it, if they pick it up, I think that's life changing.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because that's one thing I've been reflecting on a lot is like I really believe if you're a guy worth fighting for, which I think most coaches are, or kids wouldn't be wrestling for you, um, they're going to listen to what you say, and you have a lot of control over what their inner voice is going to be. Not total control, but you have a lot. And when you say like trying to just constantly be preaching, like be process oriented, that's where I feel like, I do that a lot, but then sometimes I'll do something that maybe contradicts that. Like, hey, who do we got? Like ask them, who do we got next? Or like, hey, this is what he's gonna do, which, I think all those things are important, but um they do kind of contradict what I feel like is the most important thing, and that's getting better. And that's one thing I really really want to get better at. That sounds like you guys are doing a really good job of. It's just really trying to key in on that process and just focus on getting better, and the score and the awards, they'll take care of themselves if you really master that. And you'll be proud. Like even if you do fall short, um, you know, if you focus on becoming the best you can be, you'll be very happy with how that is. And it's hard for kids to see that because wrestling's been their whole life. Like, but that they will feel that way when it's over. I'm sure you feel that way too.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think at least with this last year, we made a lot of progress, and that was like the whole point.
Yeah.
But the tough part was like being a broken record and having to
Yeah.
say the same thing, before and after every single event. Like, hey, why are we here? And the kids are like to get better. Like even this last weekend, we had a kid that took a couple losses at like it was literally right after the state tournament. Like we had another like state, it's like a USA Wrestling state tournament, so a
Oh,
lot of guys that were like borderline qualifiers, even a couple of our qualifiers ended up wrestling. But it was like before and after. I'm like, hey, like what was this weekend about? And it's like to get better. And then they say it like
yeah.
that, like to get better. I'm like, yeah, all right. Like you have a chance to get better. Like, you did get what you want,
Yeah.
and even if you did, like there's still things that you can learn, to improve. Our guy that got on the podium this year, he came to practice the other day, and I'm like, all right, you're getting ready for college. Like I'm gonna kind of, take the gloves off a little bit, but
Yeah.
and let him have it. But there's like, one thing he kept doing, and it wasn't really necessary. Well, there was like one sequence where it was like consolation semis, and it came down to a takedown, and he came out of his stance a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm like, dude, every time you clear a tie up, you kind of come out of your stance, and if somebody times it and is
Yeah.
athletic, like they're gonna shoot a double and get you
Right.
in legs,
Right.
And he's like, okay, and he has like a little notebook that he writes stuff down, so he wrote it
That's
down.
so awesome.
Yeah, no, he's a good kid, man. Like he's not like a super athlete, but he's coachable and like really wants to be good in like academics and lifestyle. He's like very dialed in. He's like one of those guys that maybe is like an over preparer,
Yeah.
right? So it's kind of like just getting them to loosen up and just focus on just, relaxing and enjoying the wrestling part and not like
Yeah.
freaking out about every little detail. I mean, do you have any guys on your team that are kind of like that where they're over preparers and they want to like
Oh,
have everything outside the room like very detailed? And if it's not like that, it's like the end of the world.
yeah. Well, it's funny you bring him up because he graduated last season, but he just came back to Clarion. He's actually a nutritionist. He's getting his master's at Virginia Tech currently, and he was like that. Even his parents would bully him about like relax a little bit, and but it was good. And he's like, I thought about him a lot as we were talking there about how like for losing weight, some people it's like a superpower, and that's how it was for him. Is he was so regimented, he could really lean into that there. But like you said, his wrestling, um, it was harder for him uh, to grow because he was super systematic, right? And he had the things that he was real comfortable with, and it just takes people like that a lot longer to get comfortable trying new things, and a lot of it's like if it doesn't feel perfect, then it's no good, and that's kind of how I was too. Was I had my system, I was very confident in it, and it was hard to add because if it didn't feel as good, then it was no good, and that's not necessarily true, especially when you think about it logically, where it's like a lot of these new things you're just trying for the first time. Of course, it's not going to feel as good.
Yeah.
And, sticking with these things that maybe make a lot of sense and until they do feel that good, you can grow a lot more. And again, I think those people, it's just maybe trying to find ways to get them to loosen up off the mat and then try to bring it into on the mat is a good approach. I haven't got to try it yet, but it sounds like your head coach is good at that. So
Yeah. Well, one thing, I think sometimes with these over repairs, I don't know if they're maybe all the same, but um, it's just trying to get him to loosen up, and I would try to get our guy to laugh. Like that
yeah.
was like my thing, like just trying to get him to like, I'd mess with them or joke with them or I am like probably the master at like doing like the finger on the shirt and like getting him to look
Oh
down
yeah,
and hit him
yeah.
with the nose. Dude, I would try to do that every single time. And I have like a million different ways to like do that. Like I'll touch the shoulder and they'll look or I'll be like,
Yeah.
dude, did you have like some ketchup or something? They're like, what? And they go that and I hit them with it, or just doing something silly just to kind of
Yeah.
open them up and be loose and relax a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
I guess for you, you like to fish, and maybe that's a big part of how you kind of unwind. Is that something that you feel like you're able to bring to coaching as well with the guys? Is like being able to kind of release a little bit from the day and getting a little bit of just kind of getting out of the wrestling room mentality a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, since I've not competing anymore, just the way I view everything is just so much different. And like um making sure that the guys have a hobby. I was talking to he coaches a club close to here, Coach Waters. His son's Ty Waters. And he's who kind of really first brought this to my attention, like really make sure that your guys do something outside of wrestling that it helps them not have an identity to the sport only. Like they need to realize like that there's more to this world and not just like a video game hobby, like something that they're taking really serious. Like there's one kid I was recruiting recently who he's a JUCO guy who's really into pottery and he like sells it and it's beautiful. It's great stuff. And for me, whenever I was in school, I was super into Magic the Gathering and it was like my thing. And
Yeah.
I sucked, but I was like, all in on it. And my brother was really good and my buddies were really good. But it was just, it didn't totally help me get over that hump, but it was a nice getaway for these things. And just with my guys now, I mean, you can kind of see it. I'm pretty upbeat and like to have a good time and have fun. And with coaching and not competing, I just with wrestling now, my relationship's like just, hey, like play with these things, get better and grow and like learn and just constantly be in that cycle of learning and unlearning and um it's clearly for me, it's like way better. Like I'm 10,000 times the wrestler I ever was in college and going through. And it's just because I approached the sport with the like, oh, that's really interesting. I want to try this. This didn't work. Okay, why? And you're just constantly, playing and tinkering around. Um, Try to teach that to the guys and it's fun that way too. And
Yeah.
when I'm wrestling, like I'll mess with them, I'll like talk crap, I'll like bite them, not like hard but like enough to like make them laugh, or I'll grab their hair and just little things to like keep it light and show them like it's really not that serious. And it's actually a superpower if you can kind of take a step back and quit being so mad that you gave up a takedown and say, oh well, that's interesting, how exactly did that happen, like and figure it out. And that's how you grow. That's how you get better. And certainly not getting upset that you gave up a takedown.
But you can't let I mean what that is ego.
Yeah,
It's like
right.
you can't let your ego get in the way of your curiosity and your willingness to be open and get better. I
Yeah.
think that's like a wisdom thing. That's like you kind of have to go through it maybe to
Yeah.
understand it a little bit
Yeah,
on
right.
the back end.
Which,
Um,
funny you bring that up because I think one of the big things ego for me was when I first started playing Magic the Gathering, I would get so upset when I'd lose that people didn't really like playing with me. So I'm like, all right, I better figure this out if I'm gonna keep playing. So and then, then it translated to dodgeball. It's the same thing. I used to get so mad when I don't know why. I just get, just wrestlers were competitive, and it turned into like I just didn't care. It was fun. And then, now it's to the point where years later it's like into my wrestling and it's a superpower once you can kind of get in there. But like we kind of talked about, you've been so competitive with wrestling for, 10 plus years. It's gonna take a little longer.
Well, it's like at least for me, it's taking things personally.
Yeah.
Like it's not just losing. It's like when your identity is wrapped up so up in it, it's like if I get taken down or if somebody, I this is gonna sound silly, but I remember at one point I wrote down everything that negative that somebody, different people might have said. Maybe it was like my second year in college.
Yeah.
Like I was in a go with one of my buddies, Adam Fiero, who's like a couple time national
Yeah.
qualifier. He's the
Yeah.
head coach at BHS, so I see him all the time. And then Bryce Hammond, who was an All American, and I was the
Yeah.
third guy in the group. And literally, I would be like the guy that would just give them a little bit of a break in between when they would wrestle. So I'd like wrestle Adam. I get like we do like two scores or something like that. Like I'd hand fight a little bit, and then I'd get like taken down and turned, and then Bryce would come in and do the same thing. And then I remember this would go for I don't know 15, 20 minutes. I remember, and then when Bryce and Adam would go, it'd be like a war.
Yeah.
And
Right.
Adam at one point said, "Why the heck are you in this group?" And
Uh,
that like hurt so bad. Like it hurt probably more than getting taken down because
oh yeah.
I'm a redshirt freshman and these guys are redshirt seniors and I'm like in my mind I'm like, oh, this sucks. And like I
Yeah.
remember going home and writing it and I was having like a pretty rough time after that. But just trying to piece myself together and trying to like what you said, like it's not that big of a deal. Like it's a big deal, but if you just maybe open yourself up a little bit
Yeah.
and just understand that, wrestling just like anything else is a game
Yeah.
and you got to have fun to a certain extent so you can be more creative and be
Yeah.
more open to actually
Right.
improving.
That's what once you understand that it's like that's not a set thing. And I don't know, like when you say that it's obvious, but you don't feel that way when you're wrestling. Like when you get taken down, you feel like I would tell myself, like, "Oh, how, if this guy's taking me down, how can I win a world title?" And it's like, well, but by figuring this problem out, that's how you do it. That's how you get better. And once you realize, like, this guy beating me or this guy scoring on me is not a long-term thing, it's just a problem to solve, you're going to get a lot better. And that it's like, I think there's a Michael Jordan quote he's like, I didn't lose, I just ran out of time. And I think of that with that a lot.
Yeah.
It's like you lost you didn't lose the match, you just ran out of time, and we're gonna beat him the next time because you got all this time to prepare and fix and grow. And I think once you kind of get to that level, and it's very hard because everyone naturally wants things now, but once you get to that, you become unstoppable because now it's just a matter of time and effort. And wrestlers don't really have that difficult a time given effort.
I think it's like another one of those superpowers. Like if you realize like, all right, given enough time, like I can kind of do anything like or I can work hard enough to figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like another superpower too. I think that was man, I always forget his name. I used to be able to do an impression pretty good, but he's like David Goggins,
Oh
right?
yeah,
Where it's like, yeah, he's tough, and it's like if you give him enough time, he's gonna figure it out, and like
exactly.
that's a superpower too.
Yeah, 100%, 100%.
So we've been going for close to an hour. We still haven't talked about the fantasy wrestling app yet. So I kind of wanted to get into that a little bit. Like, how's
Mhm.
that going? Is it going to be ready for this year? Like,
It's ready. It's out.
it's
It's on the
ready.
App Store. It's working. The freaking dude, the draft is such a making it real time is so difficult and tedious. Maybe it's easy for somebody that like knows what they're doing, but
Yeah.
has been the hardest part for me. And I got to the point where we did it for the Big Tens with a bunch of the Clarion guys, and it worked mostly right, but there were some issues. And then on the bus ride to the MAC tournament, I fixed all these things, and I'm like, all right, I think it's good. And then I went to test it with the updated with the national qualifiers and stuff, and it did not work. And I'm like, what?
Uh,
And then so I'm reading through all this, like trying to figure it out, and I'm pretty confident it's in a good place. So we'll see. I'm pretty confident that it's good, but it's like wrestling. I just got to the point with my products where I'm like, if I just keep trying to make it perfect, I'm never going to put anything out, and then it's like never
Yeah.
going to go anywhere. So just put these things out when, fix them fast and get them out there fast and, get feedback, see what people want and just keep learning. And I think maybe in a lot of ways this programming thing has helped me a lot with the mindset we've just been kind of talking a lot about today, where it's just I'm not really afraid to fail and knowing I'm going to put something out and try a plan that mostly sucks, but you know, I'm going to get feedback and we're going to fix it and make it better. And then it's going to suck a little less. And then, just keep repeating that process. No different than coaching. Like this year, there was a lot of struggles and it was a challenging year, but when you feel that hurt and that pain, you reflect a lot longer and you're definitely more likely to follow through with your updates than uh, years prior, and that's kind of how I feel with everything in my life. Like fail hard and fix fast.
Yeah, having like a goldfish memory to some
Yeah,
extent. It's like don't dwell on it. I mean, there have been times when I did podcasts where I'm like, dude, that was so bad. Like I don't even want to upload this thing.
yeah, right.
But I do it just because I know like that's just a part of the process,
Those refs.
Like you didn't maybe, have the end of the season that you want. It's like, all right, like what do we got to do better?
Yeah,
And I think with the drafting thing, last year we did we did a fantasy thing, and maybe I went the wrong way on some picks, but when you're developing this app, that you said like one of the setbacks or one of the difficult things to figure out was the live draft situation.
yeah,
So I'm big into fantasy wrestling just because I got a group chat of a bunch of guys that
yeah.
love wrestling and it's fun. And it's a way for us to kind of we're all kind of spread out over California and Nevada, so
Right.
it's a kind of a cool thing for us to kind of keep in touch with.
Yeah, right.
I guess what was your process? I guess in terms of like trying to piece this together. I know you said you used the Big Ten app, or sorry, the Big Ten tournament as
Yeah,
like a test.
yeah,
Um, how'd you kind of I guess, all right, so you're thinking, okay, we want like a live draft. Are you
yeah,
doing like snake order drafting, or are there like maybe different options, or
yeah.
how does that work?
Well, so here's what I did because I've never played fantasy sports, so I'm really not into anything besides wrestling.
Yeah.
And so what I did is I talked to some people that the coaches on staff at Clarion, a lot of them are like super into like fantasy football. And so I just kind of was picking their brain. And then I got to the point where I'm like, I'm just going to download one of these apps and like poke around. And I think I downloaded like four different ones and just, did some tests to like make sense of it all. And then the one app I really liked was like Sleeper, I think it's called. And because it had a lot of different, not just football, but a lot of different other, sports and stuff too. And I just kind of like use those designs and that layout for inspiration on how to make it. And then ultimately decided like this project's way over my head, but I'm going to learn a lot from it and I'm going to do it right. So at times I thought about like maybe just getting rid of the live draft to try to do something a little simpler. But then I'm like, wrestling should have this. And it's a big enough sport where it's probably not going to be a profitable thing for like uh, like a business like Sleeper to pursue. But
Yeah.
like for me, if it makes $1,000 a year, that's great, And I think um, wrestling will have enough people that it will be something that's a good project and that it deserves me to like make it right. So I just went all in on trying to make the live draft. It does the snake order. Long term, I'm gonna add like all of the fancy stuff, but the,
Yeah.
it's like I said, it's got some bugs and it's not perfect, but it works mostly right. So just kind of work through those, and once I get it to the point where I think it's like really structurally sound and operating well, start to add like the different features, like different. Right now, the only scoring is like how many team points you score at the tournament, just because it's the
Yeah.
simplest to do and track. But long term, I like the idea of having like football scoring. So if you score uh 15-4 is the match. The one guy gets 15 points, the one guy gets or 4 points, and then just, add up their total points at the tournament. I think that's a really interesting one. And then, do one for the season as well. And I think that I can maybe get that out for the next season, but I think I probably want to smooth some things out. It just depends how some things go and some other projects go, uh, how all that's going to play out. But, I'm proud of where it's at. And I just basically used other apps for inspiration and talked to some people and just basically copied a fantasy football app and made a wrestling version.
Do you feel like because you're coaching in college, is it maybe a little awkward, like building like a fantasy app, like of essentially like the league that you're also in?
It's weird. It was real weird whenever the Big Tens was nice because um I really had no affiliation with it. But
Yeah,
then when before and earlier testing, I would do like, there's a lot of MAC schools and stuff, and it's like like you said, it just feels a little odd, but it's fun. I really enjoy it, and I'm glad I get to do a little bit of everything.
yeah. What I didn't even ask you what the name of the app is called.
It's just the fantasy wrestling app, real
Fantasy
simple.
Wrestling app.
Yeah.
Yes, I
And I
like
and
that.
I am very very confident that it's the best fantasy wrestling app in the App Store for now.
I'm,
Yeah,
I'm,
the only one.
I'm not going to ask how many wrestling apps there are in
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
store. I'm gonna have to check it out. How much? How much is it?
So what I did is I wasn't exact I don't like ads. Like they really
Yeah,
bug me, and I just think they make it look cheesy and crappy, and I don't really ever want to go that route on anything I ever build. Um so what I ended up coming up with, and this was an idea from when I played Magic the Gathering, when I played online, they would use like basically a currency called tickets. And I wanted to do real money because like that's what people want, but it comes with a lot of like legal issues. So
yeah.
I bagged just I mean, I'm a one guy thing and I only get to code for 2 hours a day before the kid gets up. So it's just not really I can't take on that much. So the tickets are nice because it's just one ticket is $1, and then it's one ticket to get into a league, and then you win tickets based on how you do in the league. So um, basically, how it works is 50% of all of the tickets that go into a league turn into a payout for the people in the league. So if you're really good, then you never have to pay for it, and if you suck, then you're gonna have to pay for it every time. But I think it's like a good system to uh,
Cool.
get
I
people
might.
having like, hey, I'm winning money, but not get in any legal issues.
Yeah, for sure. Sorry, my camera just bugged out for a second. Yeah, the
Oh yeah.
screen I guess just crashed. Um, but yeah, no, I think with this app, I think it's something that at least like for for people that do love wrestling like that, it's just
Yeah.
another way to connect, and I think what's cool about at least, with us is like, dude, you're on the other side of the country, but we get
Yeah.
to have this conversation about wrestling, and
Yeah.
about life and stuff.
It's awesome. And like you said, I think the sport of wrestling needs something like this. It deserves something like this. And I just got to the point where I'm like, no like big company is going to be really that interested in it. So like someone needs to do this because it's going to bring the sport together, like you're saying. Like you're in Cali, I'm in PA, and we get to have this conversation. Um, I just think it's going to be a good way to bring people into the sport, and bring more eyes to everything that we're doing. And because I mean, when you're in it, like it's an exciting sport, and my wife wasn't into wrestling before we met, and she's into all of the crazy chaos that's going on. And I'm not going to mention any specifics, but there's just so many things to be excited about and to talk about, and it's not going to change. So I think this is great. And we mentioned the cost of it. It's just the currency's a ticket. A ticket's $1, and it takes one ticket to get into the league, and then 50% of that turns into like prize money for the users in the form of tickets. And it I think it's great because people like that like gambling aspect. Like
Yeah.
I can win and not have to kind of pay for fantasy wrestling forever if you're really good. And if you really stink, then you're gonna have to buy more tickets than some people. And for me, is I think a good business move too, because then it's like, all right, the person with the tickets is gonna be like, hey, come on, like just join this, let's do another one. And uh, I just think it's like I think it creates a really good system for everybody and what the sport of wrestling wants without adding a lot of legal issues to my plate.
Can you do a bunch of so let's say if I get on the app, do I have to know people or can I just join like a random league or start a league?
So right now you have to like invite people. What you could do is you could kind of post your invite code publicly, maybe.
Yeah,
But long term, I kind of want to make like that's one of the things I'm very interested in making is like more public ones and more like I guess you could think more like ranked kind of things because you like Willie Saylor and some of the people in the open room are like super competitive with these things and
yeah,
they're going to be quite a bit better than most people at these things. And I think having some kind of system where you can kind of create like almost a leaderboard
yeah.
of like these guys are the best fantasy wrestling players. I think that's something that people would get into. It's the pieces of it are in there already. Like it tracks if you win and how many leagues you played and how many you've placed in and um, things like that. So I can easily create a leaderboard, but I think longer term I want to make a more like serious you know, portion of it where it's like almost ranked style or I don't know.
Have you ever done like any of those like fantasy, like not fantasy pick'ems, but like you know what I mean, where it's like an online gambling app like DraftKings or like something like that?
No, never. It's like I mean it in every sense. Like I'm like could not be less interested in anything but wrestling. And I don't know if they have them for wrestling or not anymore. But I just couldn't. I don't know. I'm very stingy with my money too, so I've never really gambled ever in my life. I like to watch people play blackjack, but I'm not super into it.
I hate it because I feel like the money that I have, like I feel like I work hard for and I've
Yeah,
earned, and I don't like just like if I'm gonna spend it, I'd rather like go get a nice meal or like go on a trip or like
yeah,
shoot, maybe buy a new shirt or something.
yeah,
But yeah, with the blackjack, I remember this was I had turned 21 that year, and we were in Vegas for the U.S. Open, and I
yeah,
didn't make the second day, and I went with a bunch of my teammates. We went to the Hard Rock because it was the
yeah.
closest one to our hotel, and I never played blackjack before, but thankfully, like you know. I was with my buddies because at one point I'm like, all right, I'm up by like 200, and then I'm like
Oh yeah,
down,
you're doing good.
and I went to go pull out more money, and my buddy was like, hey, like this is the trap, like just
Yeah.
you're good, like you got the experience, like you don't need to pull out any more money, and I'm like, yeah, you're right, like yeah,
Ryan, you
that's a
got
good
you got
call.
good friends out there.
Yeah, well, I think ahead of time I'm like, hey, if I do anything stupid, just like let me know, and then yeah, he let me know I was being stupid, and I stopped it.
Yeah,
How like with this app and stuff, I mean, it's not necessarily gambling per se, but like I know uh Nelson Brand's got in trouble as well as a
yeah.
few other college wrestlers because they were doing DraftKings and stuff like that online. Is
Oh
that
yeah.
something that you gotta like maybe put like a little caution or something like, hey, if you're a college athlete, like just be careful, you know,
No, not on
getting
mine
on
because
this app.
it's not currency. Like there's no money, which
Even
that's
though you could cash out on it, it doesn't.
no, you can't. So that I mean that's the flaw of it. So you can't like exchange your tickets for money. Um,
Got it. Okay.
so that would be the one flaw. Um,
Well, it's not necessarily a flaw, like,
it,
if you're a
but
college
it
athlete
protects
and you
them.
wanted to do it, yeah,
Yeah, it does protect them. Because you're right. If it was like a college wrestler could not play if it was if for real money, and
yeah,
that's just silly in my like they should be able to play this game. But I get the rules. Like you don't want to be rigging bets and stuff, but this is a game that they should be have fun with and play and like it should be in no way deceitful. Like I love the betting rules. I think they make sense. Everyone's seen those crazy movies, but uh it doesn't mean they shouldn't be able to play a game like this. Like this is a fun thing for wrestling. It's like makes all the matches at the NCAA tournament really exciting, not just the finals. It makes um lets wrestlers bring people outside of sport into like they can bring people from their econ class into like, hey, let's come join my league and then they pick him to do well and like I just think it's such a great thing for the sport and those betting things they're sweet for like the people that are into it and all
yeah.
that but I think again, a big company is not, what, I don't know, maybe they do, betting stuff like that for wrestling. I'm not too sure, but like something like this is just great.
Yeah, I think it's I didn't even think about it like that, but like yeah, you could hit up people like in your class or
Yeah.
friends that you know that maybe aren't directly involved in the sport or maybe aren't as
Yeah.
into it, but it's kind of like you're trying to make it more mainstream.
Yeah, right. And then you build that bond with, maybe even you chuck some girls into playing in your fantasy league, and then they have kids one day, and then they're like, "Hey, that guy was actually pretty cool, and he had some really high character. I'm going to get my kids into wrestling because that kid was treated people right." And I think that's you know maybe a big wish on my part, but I think it's could definitely happen and help the sport in a way that's like really takes us to the next level. Because obviously we're all biased, but I think it's just there's no other sport like it. It's beautiful in so many ways. Like anybody, any size can do well. Um, you know, it and people of all different backgrounds can come and do well. You can do really well if you've done it for 10 years or if you've done it for 4 years. And it's just there's so many great things. It teaches you so much about life that like the world's so much better if they're with more wrestlers.
Yeah, and I'm always like, I think cognizant of that when like I'm out in the community, like I'm always wearing my wrestling stuff. I
Yeah.
was at a gas station and the guy behind the counter, like there's a lot of people in Bakersfield that are either knowledgeable about wrestling or knowledgeable about some kind of fight
Yeah.
sport. And he asked me about my ears and asked if I was boxing, and I was a boxer. I'm like, no, I'm a wrestler. And the guy behind me heard a wrestler, and he's like, oh, like where'd you wrestle at? Where'd
Yeah.
you coach at? He's like, oh, like my cousin was really
Yeah.
good. Like he wrestled here, and then we knew the same people, and it's
Yeah.
like
That's what it's just
that's awesome.
yeah, it's so easy to get into. That's why I think it's there. It's just there's not too many outlets to like get absorbed in it or like reasons to like get absorbed in it, or
Yeah,
something like fantasy wrestling or if some big company starts making it to where, casual fans can kind of like gamble like they do on the fights. Um, I think that's really what our sports needs is just a little more publicity this way.
yeah, absolutely. Well, Brock, dude, we've been going for a little over an hour. It seems like it was just like last time, where it's like this hour flew by,
It
big
it
time.
really did. I can't believe it, and I'm glad the kids stayed in. And dude, I gotta get out to Cali. We gotta meet in person sometime. I feel like we could get along really well.
Yeah, for sure. Um, I mean, big thing is why not recruit some California guys?
Yeah, I never have. I mean, there was a kid reached out once last year, but it's just like it's always it's always hard to reach out to like kids that I guess out of state kids that far. It's like hard because we usually don't fly kids in, so it's just like um but I agree 100%, especially when I know a coach. It's easier to get the things I'm looking for are not so much like, are they a Cali State champ or placer? It's like, all right, tell me what this kid's really about. Like, what's he like in the practice room? Can you tell me about a time he dealt with a bad call? And uh, having a guy like you that I trust and like understands like what's really important is really what I'm looking for. So I definitely will take you up on that.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, Brock, this is always fun. I'm glad we got a chance to catch up. And do you have anything else before you kind of stop recording here?
No, just thanks for having me on. Thanks for being flexible. I know it's like super early your time, so you're a trooper. And you know, anybody that listens and you included, coach, if there's anything that Bronx Aqua can do for you, just let me know.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
Yep.